Let's move on to the next panel, the panel dedicated to generating the final meshes with block surfaces. In this panel, we will generate the final model to leave it ready for the next process. In this part, we will be able to add subdivisions to the objects of the branches to have better definition of the shapes. Subdivisions are added to the objects that make up the branch so that the final generated model is smoother. In this part, we will generate the final mesh and prepare the scene to be able to generate the final meshes. Either in parts joining those of interest to work more comfortably. Then we will apply a remesh modifier adapted to the voxel resolution required for each part. We will be able to generate the final mesh by applying the modifier and leaving the model ready for the next step of our workflow. And in the final part of the panel, we have the options to switch between the different work modes with the add-on. From the Mode to Edit muscles, return to blocking mode or see the different final meshes generated. Let's start seeing the options. Object subdivisions. Before explaining these options, we are going to change the visualization mode. Because if we work with the smooth shader activated here, it makes it difficult to see how subdivided the objects are, and we need to know that the smooth shader is only an optical effect. And when we generate the final mesh, we will have these subdivisions marked in the final object. So to give more definition to this, we can subdivide the mesh with these options. In this subpanel, we will be able to add the subdivision modifier to the selected objects or to the objects of the entire collection in which we have some object selected. We establish the number of divisions, and this adds a subdivision modifier to the objects of the branch or to the selected ones. We apply the modifier. Here you can mark if only to selected or to all of the branch. If we do not mark this option, it will apply the modifier to all the objects of the branch. Let's see. If we do not apply the modifier, we could put 0 subdivisions again. We finally put 1 subdivision and apply the modifier. And now we can see that the generated mesh has the resolution that the objects of the branch have. We can do this before generating the final mesh, to have in the parts that we are interested in more or less defined shapes. So, to generate the final mesh, we will use the Prepare BK Surface Objects option. Here we can establish the selected parts. And this will hide the blocking layers and allow you to select the Blocksurfaces objects. The Blocksurfaces objects are those that carry the geometry nodes that generate the final surface. This way you can easily select which objects you want to generate the final mesh for. The blocking objects are hidden and it selects those that had some branch object selected. Here we can return to blocking mode and reselect, or without selecting anything, it will select the whole model. We would generate the final mesh here. This duplicates the surface objects, applying the geometry nodes modifier and creating a folder called BK Surface. Each time we generate with this option, it will generate a new folder, so we can have as many models to sculpt, as many poses as we want. The next option allows us to change the generated object for the branch objects. That is, if in any part of the model we want the branch objects for the final model, we can do it here. To have the branch objects, we should have done mirror branch so that there are objects on both axes. Selecting and clicking on the BS to Obj option again, we get the mesh generated by geometry nodes back. The The next option, Join, simply allows us to unite the meshes to group them as we see fit for the next step in the workflow. Or for different voxel size for remeshing, or if there are parts that make handling easier to show or hide as we work. This way we can do it more comfortably. We establish the voxel size for remeshing, and try values high enough so it's not too heavy. This adds a remesh modifier to each object, and so we can adjust it to what we need for each part. We try values until we have the resolution we need, adjusting for each part or the same for all if it's correct for us. With the appropriate remesh value we can apply the modifier to the objects and have it ready to continue with sculpting. So as we see, it created the BK surface folder for us. And if I want to generate another final model, I would repeat the process, return to blocking mode. Put the desired pose and again press on Prepare Surface Object to repeat the process. We generate the new final objects. And this time we will unite everything into a single object. We adjust the voxel size value for remeshing suitable for the whole model. And now we could apply the remesh modifier to have the final mesh of this other pose. Now we could sculpt here, in this case everything is the same mesh. Here we can see that it generated a collection for each model. We can generate a third model by repeating the process. Returning to blocking, placing the pose we want, and again, prepare, generate, join the desired parts. Adjust the voxel size. And do the remesh. Then apply it. Ready, we can sculpt. And there we have the three models we have generated. In the final part of the panel, we find the different work modes of block surfaces. If we go to blocking mode to work with the model, These options can also be found with the Ctrl plus Shift plus Alt plus Q keyboard shortcut pie menu. We return to BK Surfaces mode to see the final meshes again. To see the other options, let's look at this other model. So in Blocksurfaces mode we can select the branch objects, but it will not select the muscle flat objects. This is to allow easy handling of the model. With the muscle flats being parented to the branches, we can easily move them without worrying if both are selected or not, making it much more comfortable. When we want to modify something of the muscle flats, we have to go to its mode here. This option selects all muscle flats and only allows us to select objects of this type. So we can easily adjust them. We can return to blocking to work normally with the branches. And we have one more option to handle both types of branches here. Here you can see how the objects that form the membranes are parented to the object used to create the branch. Let's go back to select muscle flat plus blocking mode. In this mode we will be able to do things like, for example, copy the material from a branch, in this case the body, to the muscle flats.